Changing the game through real estate, yeah. Changing the game through real estate. I can never wait, got what it takes to dump this on my plate. And I got a budget, teach you how to save. Listen to this podcast, you will be amazed. Play this any morning, any night, any day. We're the winning team, we were born to be brave. Yeah, changing the game through real estate, yeah.
So, welcome, Mel, to the Change the Game Through Real Estate podcast. So, can you kind of introduce yourself and tell everyone like who you are, what you're about, and what you got going on?
Absolutely. I am so honored to be on the Changing the Game podcast with you. I am so thrilled and excited to introduce myself. So I'm Mel Volland. I'm kind of a hodgepodge of real estate things. And I'm a real estate agent. That's my newest feat. But I am also an investor. I had several properties and kind of scaled it back.
Hey, you're fine.
Scaled it back. I have a 4-unit. I specialize in midterm rentals, and I also co-host and property manage. So, quite a lot of things.
I guess my first question is, what does hodgepodge mean?
Hodgepodge means a wide mixture of all the things thrown into the pot, and you mix it together, and you don't know what you're going to get, and it might be magical and it might be terrible.
So I always ask everyone, like, it's always so interesting, like, what inspired people to really get into real estate. And we've talked a lot, and I don't think I've ever really like kind of like you've ever told me like why you got into real estate, like what happened, what did you read, like a book like everyone else, or like
the classic Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah,
a little bit. Gosh, it's changed over the years, but my first house purchase was a house hack, a duplex. I am from California originally, and obviously came out this way to Hampton Roads like everybody else via the military or having a spouse in the military. And so I started out with a house hack. Real estate in California is insanely expensive.
Yeah.
And I was a serial renter and never thought I could actually own a property. And my partner and I at the time decided that, well, Virginia looks pretty affordable, so let's go for it. And we did a house hack. And so that's kind of what sparked real estate for me. And then
So what year was this?
this was in 2018.
2018. Okay.
So I've been in Virginia for 4 years. Oh my gosh, is that math right? I'm in real estate.
Let's say 2018.
Yeah, 2018. And that's how it started. So the tenant in the duplex inherited him. He was like 3 months behind on his rent and had to figure out what it meant to, one, be a homeowner, and two, how to be a landlord. And that was really fun. And at the same time, purchased the house sight unseen, didn't have a clue, trusted our realtor that we found, I think we found her on Bigger Pockets actually. And she found the house and did the thing. And I managed the renovations as, I sourced all the different people to come in and help me. So instead of hiring one contractor, right, I was kind of that person.
So you have previous education and bigger, because you mentioned Bigger Pockets before you did this. So were you like listening to that podcast and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, I think it mostly started through that. I did read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and the thing is I held off on reading it for so long because I'm like, I'm never going to be a dad. So why am I going to read this, right? So the title is so deceiving. I didn't really understand what it was about until I actually picked up the book, and I'm like,
That's funny.
So I don't know if anybody else can relate to that. My females out there, they're like, I don't want to read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's funny. I guess my cousin gave me the book, and I didn't really think it was necessarily real estate, but I could see how it can be kind of like misinterpreted. But so that first house you bought, you did you have like an idea like, hey, I wanted to like rent this out? To like, what did you like go into? It's like, hey, we just need somewhere to live.
Basically.
And sight unseen, that's pretty brave. It's like you're putting a lot of faith into that? Did it backfire? Was it a good decision?
It
Did you get
was
lucky or?
terrifying. It was a good decision. It was a great decision. And for someone like me, which we may pick up on later, is I kind of like control in some senses. So it was really hard to not see such a big purchase in person.
Mhm.
And it's funny now because I help so many people, purchase sight unseen from far away, and I can totally relate to where
Yeah.
they're at. And getting the inspection report, right? We know that inspection reports are 30 plus pages of just random things that pop up,
Very generalization,
loose
like
outlets, this and that. But my young brain of not having that experience, I was just like, oh my gosh, everything's like, what? Why am I doing this? And had that moment of like buyer's remorse, and then got
yeah.
over it pretty quickly and had a great time with it and
So
loved
you
it.
bought it in 2018. You lived there for probably a couple years.
Hmm.
What happened? What happened after that? Did you want to go? Did you buy another house? Like
Yeah, so our next property was the fourplex here, and then shortly after, I had a goal to purchase some property every year. My goals have changed a little bit now, but that was my initial goal: is to purchase once a year or get up to X amount of units by 35, and all of that stuff is still possible. It's just a little bit on halt at
so,
the
what was your
moment.
goal? How many units did you want
I
by
wanted
when?
sorry, not 50. I was gonna say 50 because I think that's where I'm at now, but at the time I wanted 100.
Hmm.
And, big goal, you gotta have big goals if
Yeah.
you're gonna achieve anything. Even if I got to 50, I'd be like, heck yeah. So still not 35 yet. So
Yeah.
there's hope.
So you went from a single house and then you went to fourplex. What really made you want to like okay fourplex? Like first you house hacked the one. Did you house hack the next one? And why fourplex?
No, I stayed in the duplex actually. I always have had this mindset of live below your means. And I'm kind of a thrifty gal, so I like to reuse old things, or, some one woman or man's trash, another woman or man's treasure, right? So that's always been my mindset, and I didn't grow up wealthy, pretty average middle class, and was able to live in California with my family, but they had lived there forever, so
Yeah.
they didn't have new money or
Hmm.
whatever, if you will, now that California is all techie and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I didn't really learn much about money. Budgeting was not my parents' forte. I had a ton of student loans. I know we're going like backtracking a little bit,
Yeah.
but I had a ton of student loans when I left college and didn't know how to manage money at all. And I knew that I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 my whole life and just live in this state of panic all the
Hmm.
time of like, can I afford? Can I afford? Can I make it? What can I do? So I knew that something needed to change, and I knew that real estate was that.
So what was like the aha moment? Like man, like okay, like I'm taking on this fourplex. Like hey, I have student loan debt. Like what made you realize like hey, like I really need to get my life on track. Really need the budget. How did you go about learning to I guess budget? Like how did you go about that? Like what was the
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just surrounding myself with people who were either already in real estate and understood what that meant really helped propel me forward, because I started going to, when I first moved here, I started going to some of the investor group
Mhm.
meetups in the area. And so I just figured, if I surround myself with these people, maybe they'll think I'm one of them. And then maybe if they think I'm one of them, then maybe I'll become one of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, truthfully, I was one of them. I do air quotes because I had a duplex,
Mhm.
and everybody has to start somewhere. And whether or not, you have your starter home that you want to create into or shift into a rental, if or if you have a duplex or a multifamily, like you have to start somewhere, and
Yeah.
you can call yourself an investor. And so I think it was just a mindset shift, and then getting around people who are doing the thing that I wanted to do helped a lot. So I met a different real estate agent at the time who was heavy into helping investors, and she helped find this fourplex unit. It was
Hmm.
off market, and she knew that I wanted one.
Yeah.
And the price point and all of that made sense, and the seller just didn't want to deal with the property anymore. There was an eviction happening, when I purchased it, so I had to see that through. And we're a block from the beach, so I knew that that was going to be a huge appreciation tool, location, right? So
I've
I
heard I've
think
heard that before though. Like you back to what you were saying about like being in a certain room. I think Joe Rogan mentioned it at one of his podcasts recently. He was talking about like how like where you are in your environment like kind of determines whether or not what you're gonna do. Like being successful. If you're like in a mediocre room and all these people are going out to the bars, that's what you're gonna do. But if
mhm,
you're in like high achievers, everyone wants to get into real estate. That's exactly what you're gonna do. So do you feel like that was like what you needed to do is like, hey, I needed to change my room. I needed to get in with all these people that want to do deals, need to be get into deals to kind of like get your mind right to like
absolutely. Absolutely, no question. I knew that if I kept pursuing a W-2, kept kind of renting or just doing anything that the normal population does, right?
yeah
I would stay there because we are very comfortable with comfortable. So the shift is also getting uncomfortable, or
yeah
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
yeah.
It would
I
be the
think
goal.
I heard this saying. I was like, I think I was a like it was a mastermind. People were talking about it, and they said that like your natural instinct is to be reserved. Like, no, don't
Hmm.
do that. Don't do this. Don't do this. And I think I heard this quote. It says fear is your friend, and
Mm,
it says fear really fear recognizes your or reveals your weaknesses and gives you the opportunity to make it your strength.
yeah.
And I think that's a very big truth because a lot of things like I'm afraid to do is like the number one thing to that make me better. Like I really didn't want to start a podcast. Had to start a podcast. Really like, hey, take a chance on this investment property. It's kind of reserved like, hey, what if it fails? But it's kind of like, is it just fear or is it like is if the numbers make sense and all this, then go for it. Don't let fear hold you back. And I think that's kind of like, I feel like you always hear these stories about people like they have like a couple deals, but like and then they just like explode because they just said forget fear and just
Hmm.
go for it.
It's so true.
So what did you have to like kind of like convince yourself to like, hey, like Mel, don't be scared. Just to say screw it.
Yeah, screw it. Literally, I now tell people to like make sure their numbers make sense and blah blah
Yeah,
blah. And I feel like I look at a property so whole, like in a holistic sense, where I'm like, well, I see its potential, and I I know myself, and I'm gonna do what I can to make sure that it doesn't fail.
yeah.
And if it does, like, what's the worst case? Like, what is the worst case? Are you gonna die because like the house doesn't, make money or something?
Hmm.
No, like you just pivot and you figure out, if it doesn't work, what's your plan B? What's your exit strategy? All of those things. So really kind of like thinking or even writing down your fears. Like I had to practice this a lot, and honestly I probably need to do a little bit more of it now. But back then I'd write down every single fear of mine and then just like counter it with a positive,
Yeah.
and it's like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what's really so bad about this fear? Like, what are you really afraid of? And then that just really helped shift it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you bought this property. When did you kind of realize? 'Cause I know your main thing is short term and midterm rentals. Did you have that insight going into it, or just like, hey, this is cool, let me try it? Like, what really got you into kind of like your main focus now? Because I know your main focus right now is midterms. So
Yeah. So at the time, I knew that in the fourplex, there was an eviction, right? So I told you
hmm
that there was an eviction. So I knew that that unit would be vacant. The other ones were rented out. I'm like, okay, I want to renovate it. Fine. I didn't actually originally buy it for short or midterm rental.
yeah,
I bought it originally for long term. And I just saw opportunity for rent increase and improvements. And this neighborhood at some point is going to appreciate if it hasn't already. And that was kind of the approach. And then as I started figuring out my plan for the renovation, I was like, I wonder what it would be like if I did a short-term rental. We're by the beach. It'll bring in a lot more money than what my other units are bringing in because they were below market at the time. Let's give it a go, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I just started, once the renovation was done, I started thrifting and finding furniture to throw in here, and I just kind of learned as I went. I didn't do a coaching program. I didn't really have any resources other than
YouTube
the
University.
no, YouTube University. Honestly, I don't even think I used YouTube. I
Yeah.
was just like, I'm creative. I can figure this out. So I just had fun with it in the beginning. And
So were you like short-term rentals, which were like below less than 7 days, or like you started out like that? And we're in Norfolk, Virginia, by the way. So how was your go about like, hey, got the rentals, you just buy the furniture to make it look all nice? Like, what was through your process of like how you planned for your first one? Because I know I feel like the first one's always the hardest because you're not really sure what to expect.
Yeah, I think I can get myself into a lot of analysis paralysis, but as soon as I get past that, it's just like, let's take action and let's just do it. So I truly, I wish I had all of the, knowledge base of what it takes to do it from the get-go, but really all you have to do is take action. And that's what I did. And there was no rhyme or reason. I just I took my own photos, made it look nice. I knew I wanted color. The surfboard in the back here, it's bright yellow. I'm like, that's going to catch someone's eye.
Yeah.
And that's really all it took in the beginning. And I obviously at the time didn't know about city regulations or anything like that, like most people, which is why I like to speak on this topic because it really impacted the way that my business operated. Because I did a short-term rental for an entire year, and then I ended up getting a cease and desist letter from the city with a fine, and I'm like, what in the world? I can't do this? This is my own property. You're going to tell me what I can and can't do?
I know, right? So they sent you that letter. What did it like kind of say? Did it say, hey, stop or else, or
shut it down? Like, you are being shut down by the city.
So they fined you? How much was it?
I want to say, gosh, like 500. It wasn't even that much.
Yeah.
I think it's higher now. I haven't quite heard exactly. I think the last I heard it was 2,000. So I don't know exactly. Like, don't quote me on that.
Yeah. So you got that letter. You're probably like, crap, I just spent all this money on furniture and all this stuff. So what was the next step? How did you go fight it? Did you just give in? Like,
well, I was like, oh my gosh, so innocent at the time, like so innocent. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll just make it right with the city. So then I went through the process of getting my short-term rental approved by the city. So you basically just fill out an application online and it starts there. And then, I obviously flagged myself.
Yeah.
For, now everyone knows what my property is and everyone knows that I run a short-term rental here. And so I thought it would be as easy as that to get it up and running again, was just to get it approved by the city. And it's really not that simple.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's kind of like, so we just bought a short-term rental up in like the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's like in a small town, and we got the same letter, but it was like they had like steps like, hey, you gotta do this if you want to fight it. Did they kind of like, so I think one of the steps is like, hey, you gotta let the tell the neighbors or something like that. Here you gotta appear in court at this time, and yay or nay after that. So I know what's like up there, and we can touch about like, I'm probably gonna ask for some advice on that. But how did you go about it, fighting that? Did you have to? Because I know you're midterm. Is that why you had to go to midterm, or?
Yeah, I decided to pivot to midterm, which wasn't even a thing that I had heard about. I literally like tried Googling, midterm rental or whatever, and there was nothing. And I think I found maybe one article on it, like a blog post or something. I have no idea who it was. And basically it's what you do in your off season as a short-term rental, right? Your off season, you try to get somebody in for a couple months, lower the price, whatever. So it's basically that, but all the time. And So I figured that was worst case scenario. My next exit strategy would be, okay, midterm rental. But I thought it would be as simple as, okay, like now the city knows who I am and I can pay whatever to
Yeah.
get approved and grandfathered it or whatever. And they said no. And the reason that they said no is because I met, I met all of their qualifications,
Yeah.
but this particular property is in an accident potential zone, APZ zone.
Mm-hmm.
And in the city of Norfolk, and if anybody's listening and you are from here and you want a short-term rental, check to make sure you're in APZ or not, because that's going to be your first line of defense.
And if you're not, you go to the next step.
You could potentially go to the next step, but with the APZ, if you are in that, it's basically because our military bases fly their helicopters and aircraft all around here, that basically if something happened, we're in a zone of like being hit by an aircraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's make it okay for long-term people to live here and die by your aircraft that crashes, right? But not someone who's there for 3 to 7 days. Cool.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
But so that's after that you go to the next step. Then what? Then you have to appeal to the court, or like
So there's
go up, say, yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry, but please help me out.
So they have, basically you determine whether or not your property, like based on your bedrooms. So if you have 3 or less bedrooms, you might be able to take a different route. If you have 3 or more bedrooms, you have to go for a conditional use permit. And these are always changing. So I try my very hardest to stay up to date on not civic league meetings, but city council meetings, I guess civic league meetings too, depending, and planning commission meetings, just to see, or listen to what the newest regulation might be, because it's changing all the time, and they're seeing density issues, and so they're wanting to try to regulate how many are in each area. So really it could change at any moment, but typically if you have 4 bedrooms or more, you have to get a conditional use permit with the city. So then you go through that process, and you have to then meet all of their requirements that are insane. You have to have, I think it's like 1.67 parking spaces per bedroom and it has to be paved parking. And then you have to have 2 trees on your property so that they can maintain the tree canopy requirements of the city. They want you to have cameras on the exterior. They want you to have sound machines on the interior. They want you to, have all of these things that nobody thinks about.
Yeah.
And that do cost a lot of money, and then you have to have your business license, and you have to have private trash pickup. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through for somebody who just wants to like rent out a room or rent out their house. They definitely make it difficult.
And that's for everyone. That's like, is it any different for someone who's just like wants to do Airbnb and rent out their bedroom? Is it a different regulations because you're not necessarily?
That's true. Yeah, you're a homestay at that point, so that does classify differently in the city of Norfolk, and I think in the city of Virginia Beach as well. I'm not as well rounded in Virginia Beach. I do have a client who was starting the process for Virginia Beach, so I was going to pick his brain on that.
Because I know one of the reasons we got flagged is, honestly, I think because it was doing too good. But
you guys are too successful. You're making too much money.
I think it was this because of my wife's designing. I think it was, I don't know, everyone was talking about it up there, so that may have been.
You guys are famous.
No, not even close. But they said, so we haven't got to that point. They said, okay, you have to go talk to your neighbors, appeal to the court, but they didn't say anything about the trees or anything like that. So I'm not sure if it's anything like that. But is it simply like I have to go plant a tree? Like,
well, the problem is this stuff's not posted on the city's website here, so I don't know about that specific city where your guys' short-term rental is, but the regulations are different. So, or likely different, maybe less stringent, maybe more stringent. But my best advice is to try to get the phone number or contact somebody in the planning commission's department, zoning, something of that nature, so that you can really pick someone's brain real time, because they're not great at updating the website.
I think the biggest issue for like definitely in Norfolk, let's say you want to go invest in that certain area, like that's a big risk. Like, oh, the numbers work only on midterm or short term
Oh
rentals.
yeah, no,
Then
no,
that's a heck of a gamble. So
no,
it's like, oh,
yeah.
I'm just gonna short term rental this. Like I had a guy telling me one time, he said, oh, the numbers are amazing. I'm just gonna do midterm, short term rentals. I'm gonna just kill it. And he's like, I was like one of those people that like they just they don't really want you to say yes, like agree with them. They don't want you to
Mm.
give your opinion, which I mean, that's fine. But I was like, well, I hope it works out. So.
That's all you can do
Yeah,
sometimes.
but
And then later down the road, he'll be like, "Huh,
yeah.
remember what
So
Tyler said something
that
about
would
that."
be your best piece of advice is make sure everything works all the ways, like
Mhm.
long term, short term, and
Oh
midterm.
yeah, oh yeah. So I get calls pretty frequently of people who want to buy short term rent because I'm a realtor as well.
Yeah,
So they're like, "Oh, I want to buy a short term rental," and I'm like, you better be thankful that you contacted me because there's so many real estate agents out there who don't know how to advise these people and they're just blindly purchasing
yeah,
my neighbor right here, cute little bungalow house, somebody flipped it and he bought it and I saw him in the yard and I'm like, hey, like said hi and asked him, he's clearly military wearing his uniform. And he was like, yeah, my plan is to, short term rental it in 2 years when I'm done. And I'm like, who was your realtor? Because you can't do that here. Like, sorry, you can't do that here, but you can midterm.
so, but they saw in air DNA the numbers worked.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
so I guess my main thing is like you see on like air DNA, you see like the analysts, you see there's a lot of Airbnbs. Are
Mm-hmm.
they just midterm rentals, or there's certain areas where they can get short term rentals, or people are just trying to say catch me if you can?
There's a lot of that. So I think there's a lot of all of that. Everything you just said, yes. um, according to the Norfolk City last city council meeting I was at, I think there was like, I don't know, I'm just not making this up, but it's an estimate, like 100 to 150 properties that are legal, that are operating with the permits and everything, and then there's 150 plus illegal properties.
Yeah,
And they have a map where it's like has a green triangle on it, like, yep, they're permitted, and then they have like red triangles everywhere of people who are not permitted. So they're clearly watching and they're clearly wanting to have those people, either cease and desist or
because
go through the
I've heard
proper.
some people like they don't put the outside of their house because then like because you know how like Airbnb doesn't tell you the exact location.
Mm-hmm.
They show the inside of their house but not the outside. So if the
Mm-hmm.
city tries to contact them, they would almost have to like either book that place and then already deposit to see it, or like maybe someone just ends up like
Yeah.
snitching to lower their
I've
competition.
totally
But
told people that that's what they need to do if they're planning, because there's people who are like, I don't care, I'll do it illegal. I'm like, okay, cool, bro, but like, make sure you don't have the pictures on there. So I've totally told people that, and I don't advise it, but I've kind of
we don't advise that.
anyway. Don't come for me. But I also heard, and I don't even want to say this in case somebody from the city's listening, but like I've heard of people putting it as a short-term rental on the weekends when the city is not working, and then try to like get bookings and then put it back to like long-term.
So is there like my wife runs ours, so I don't know that much. But do you have like a little? Oh, you just do your minimum stays like either 30 days or
Mm-hmm.
you switch it back and forth. I got you. That's interesting.
Yeah, and in the city in particular, when I went through my whole shabacle of pivoting to midterm, I was like, well, how do I know you're not going to find me again? And because I said, I want to keep my property on Airbnb to do midterms, 30 plus day stays. And I was like, but I don't want to get another letter from you guys. And they said, just make sure it's in the description that it's 30 plus day stays. And now you can filter for that sort of thing. Back then, I don't think you could filter.
So 30-day midterm rentals unless you like text me and then we will.
Right? Private booking site, maybe.
Because you need that, because it's like another avenue of how you market your property through like Airbnb,
yeah.
VRBO.
You still want to use those platforms.
So I know that's one of the interesting questions for midterm rental, because people are always curious, like, hey, how do you find those people? Like, are people like on like, I knew Furnished Finder is one of them, but theirs kind of takes some time, because we looked at that also. It's like a process getting through Furnished Finder, isn't it?
It's just not a super user friendly.
Yeah, I've heard that also.
Yeah, so it's not. They're trying. They've
They're
made they've made some changes.
They're trying their best.
Doing what they can. But you get really good tenants out of there. I've noticed that they're, during the pandemic and everything, and I hate to always take something to the pandemic, but it
Yeah.
happened. It's in our life, guys. But there were so many traveling professionals at that
Yeah.
time, medical professionals. Of course, everyone knows travel nurses and all of that. So it was like you couldn't, like, I wish I had so many properties at that time to fill all these people. I would have 10 inquiries a day from
Yeah.
people, and then fast forward to today, I'm barely getting like 3 inquiries a week.
Mhm.
So, and then now the saturation of midterm rentals has grown
Yeah.
exponentially because people are getting shut down by the city. So then they pivot, which
Yeah.
of course I had to do the same thing. And I love this model. But I highly recommend, if it's something that you want to get into, is to look at, filter, go to Airbnb, furnished finder yourself, apartments.com, filter by furnished rental, filter by, 30 plus day stays, and see what the saturation is
Yeah.
in your area. Because, we're lucky here in Norfolk to where it's high turnover, incredibly transient with the military and hospitals and schools and all of that. But I'm finding that there's just so many.
Yeah.
And I never want that to hold anybody back from doing what they want to do, right? Like, don't necessarily listen to me and like
Yeah. Well,
and
if
like
you have
not open a midterm rental, but like just be smart about it. And when I first started here, it was like there was no other midterm rentals
Yeah.
other than in the off season, and now it's definitely a widely recognized normal thing with it's densely populated.
So I know there's always a normal way to analyze a deal, but for midterm rentals, that's what you suggest is like kind of do more of a deep dive and go on apartments.com, look for 30 days, look for furnished, I guess Furnished Finder does it too. I've always heard that furnished rentals rent like 25% more than a normal unit. Is that kind of like correct, or am I like way off?
I would say it's double
It-
what you would pay, like what someone would pay for a long term. They're going to do double
Oh, really?
for midterm, or you could even push it a little bit more, but usually 1.5 to 2 times like
Interesting.
the long term rental, excuse me, rate. So when I first started 4 years ago, I had people paying 800, 750, 800. I had a tenant who paid 625. And so I basically just listed for 1600 for the midterm,
Yeah.
and that did really well. And then in the summertime I'd bump it up to 1800, and then the market started to change and I wanted to keep up with that. So then it's like now in the summertime these units are listed for 24 to
Yeah.
2600, but the long-term rental amount has also upped in this area. It's more like 1100 here
Mhm.
than 4 years ago when it was 850. So
Interesting.
you kind of have to always have a pulse on that, to maximize it. But of course, like if I wanted to stay at 1600, I'd still be making so much more and providing a less expensive service to somebody and giving, housing. I don't want to take away from the long-term rentals. I just want to fill a need for people who are the in between. And short-term rentals, filling the in between is hugely, like, way more expensive than a midterm rental. Like if I went and looked at your short-term rental, right, and I wanted to book it for a month or two, it'd be so much more expensive than if I knew or found a midterm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
One thing I didn't realize was how expensive like it is for like your cleaner to come in. Like if someone only stays for like a day or two and you pay your cleaner, it's like that's a lot of like I guess money that you're going down. But at least for midterm, it's less. I guess
Yeah. So your
at least maintenance
resources
is.
are, you're not having as much turnover. So your cleaning fees, like you said, you have people who are living in your house or in that unit long term, and so they want to take care of it. They're not there to party, which they could party, have people over on the
Yeah.
weekends or whatever. But typically they're traveling for business or even leisure, but they just want to change of scenery. They're in there long enough to where they want to take care of it.
Yeah.
And you have aside from Airbnb, Furnished Finder and things, you have a traditional lease. And so you still have to you take deposits and they sign a lease. At least I would highly recommend that you guys do that, just to protect yourself, but also, it operates almost like a long-term rental.
So let's touch on that. So let's say I know short term rentals you don't really like have that. It's almost like a hotel in and out. But
Mhm.
like midterm rentals, you do a lease. And you just like, hey, they reach out to you like, hey, I want to rent for your for 30 days, like, and you send them a lease, hey, sign this, and it's just like an apartment doing 30 days. It's the same kind of concept.
Yeah, and you can screen your tenants as well, so you could do the background check, credit check, and all of that. So you treat it like a long term. Now Airbnb is much harder to do that. So the way that I sort of make up for that is my prices are a little bit higher on Airbnb,
Yeah.
just because I don't have the ability to, Airbnb wants to push everything on their platform.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that, they say that they do their background checks or whatever and they verify people's identity, but we've all been spammed,
Yeah.
spam message.
Yeah, right.
And
It's
I'm
all the
like,
bots.
honestly, what are they trying to do? I imagine they want to somehow get you off platform to then pay them. Because I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm like, what are you trying to get from me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Steal all
Information, maybe?
steal all of my furniture. Like, you can have it.
My theory is it's the city trying to get more information so they can
They have all the bots going.
Yeah.
I want this for just 3 days. Okay, caught.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you go about getting your lease? Did you just find like a normal lease like you use as a real estate agent? Let's say someone's not a realtor, like, and they want to do midterm rentals and they're brave enough to do it themselves. Where's the best place to find just find the typical lease online or?
Yeah, that is very brave. You can find a ton of templates for your state. I would recommend having a lawyer at least look over it before you use it.
Yeah.
But the templates are fine, really. I mean, they're not the best. A lawyer would be the best. But the only things that I would really add or have differently on the leases for midterm are things like the security deposit might look a little bit different. Just because the monthly rental amount is so high, I typically do half of rent. So instead of, if they're
So you're
paying,
still doing security deposit and all that stuff before? Okay.
yep,
Interesting.
pet fees, cleaning fees, those types of things.
So they're paying almost like triple because technically they're paying for it and they have to deposit into it. So I mean I feel like that's pretty good security though.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to evict someone from midterms?
Ooh, don't jinx me. No, I have not. Knock knock.
Because I've always been curious. Like it was like I knew that I've talked to a couple of our property
I'm waiting
managers.
for it. I'm waiting for it.
I can imagine it being kind of hard to get people out now because evicting people is just a pain anyways. But
I haven't had that type of experience. I think it goes back to screening your tenants really well and asking the questions. And oftentimes they're on to their next job. They're on to their next, I have had, with midterms, there is more wear and tear, less eyes on the property. So I almost just expect the cost of doing business, like I said earlier, like linens being thrown out or donated. And then if things break, it's like, okay, I've had this for so long. It's really, I'm not going to charge them $10 for something. They're relatively good tenants and I expect wear and tear.
So one of the interesting things, so we just did short-term rentals, and so we had someone steal something, and it was the weirdest thing. Is they stole the pillows.
That's happened to me too.
I don't understand. I was
what is the pillow thieves like?
And my wife just bought these kind of nice pillows, and then it's she was kind of annoyed. It's do you even say anything? It's really not that big of a deal, but it's pillows. So.
And you're at the mercy of people's reviews, especially on Airbnb. I mean, your business lives and dies by reviews.
Yeah.
So just going at it politely and some, it's like oftentimes it's not even worth submitting the claim.
And I tried to like give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they brought their own pillows and they had kids and just took them with them. I mean, there's always like a reason, but I just thought that was so strange. I was like, like everything in the house, like, because it's very like antique design related.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the pillows though, like I was like, like I don't know, but I thought
Pillow fetish.
maybe they were just really really nice pillows and they're really really soft. Maybe I don't know.
Emily's got good taste. So.
Yeah. She's definitely like definitely the creative person in the relationship. That's for sure. I'm learning though. I'm getting there. But so talk to me about like property management when it comes to midterm. Like I know like you did it. So you were the investor. And what really made you want to get into property management? You just glutton for more punishment, or
right? Why does anyone do property management?
yeah,
For me, it would be the money.
yeah,
Just, and this is totally. I'm reading a book called Who Not How. I think it's by Dan Sullivan, and it's my biggest challenge for like personally is figuring out who's better at something than me. Not better, that came out really bad, but but like who like oh gosh, now I'm stumbling.
that's
That
okay.
came out so bad. No, but who not how like feeding off of other people's strengths and like they can do it better than you and you can let go of that control, which I touched on earlier. Like I just like to have my hands in the pot at all times, but it really takes away from my ultimate goal of time, freedom
Yeah.
of time. And so all of these things like, steal from you. They steal, like I'm being sucked by all of these extra tasks.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to pay somebody a fee when I knew, especially being local, it's like it's not that difficult to do on your own. Now, eventually, I would like to get to that place, but I feel like
well, you kind of like once you build all your systems in your team, like everything's pretty easy. It's like I could see that probably why you went to management. It's like, man, I already got that team. It's pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah.
I might as well just help like have another extension to yourself. But I guess the one issue I always have is trying to find like balance between like because I feel like real estate is like almost like a contact sport. It's always like hitting you and there's all you gotta go.
Can't shut off.
So how do you find like balance? And I know like you had some like relationship issues in the past that kind of like messed with you, like but it's trying to like find the balance between everything. Like how did that how or have you found balance?
It's always an ongoing challenge, the balance, because you block your calendar off for something like, oh, I'm going to take my dog to the beach. We're going to go on a walk. I'm going to work out. I'm going to make time for these friends or whatever. And then something pops up. If somebody wants to buy a house, there's an emergency at a property, and you're kind of at the mercy of other people. Like we are entrepreneurs, but we actually work for the people that we help.
Yeah, because you're in the service industry. Your goal, I guess your business is all about serving others. So
right. So I don't have a boss, but like I have
You
many
do.
bosses, many bosses. So there's beauty in the flexibility of our schedule. And so I find, earlier in the week, in the middle of the day is like when I can find my balance to do what I want to do. But really we're at the mercy of tenants, clients, owners, and it's tough.
So you were an investor. You got into midterm short-term rentals. Got kicked from that. Got into midterm rentals. Then you became in property management. What made you decide after that to get your real estate license? Because because everyone. I mean, I know it's like a fad, but I was curious what your.
Yeah, so I left my W-2 job, I want to say in 2020, like November of 2020, and wanted to pursue real estate.
Right in the crisis.
Right in the crisis. I was like, forget y'all. I'm out, which I think has happened a lot for people where they're jumping ship from W-2s because they're overworked and underpaid.
Yeah, they didn't want a boss, but now they have tons of bosses.
All the bosses.
Yeah.
So at that time, I quit and left my W-2 and my game plan was to then study for my real estate license, but that was like after the fact. Like I should have probably stayed working in my W-2 and then got my license. But at the time, like you said, I was married and he was sort of like, okay, backup income, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't really need mine right now while I go through this. So my goal
And
was
you can get that real estate professional status too.
yeah.
So.
So then I got my license and went through a divorce all at the same time. And so I found myself in this place of like survival, right? So I'm trying to get myself out of this because it's been, a year and a half or so. And it's almost falling back into that survival state of like, go, go, go. I have to like
Yeah.
hustle. Like that hustle mentality was so strong at that time that now it's almost like I'm going backwards in time to where I feel like I'm almost starting over to get myself into less time consuming tasks.
Yeah, because I know, like let's say you map out your plan for your life, like, boom, this is my goal. I see that in 10 years, like you're focused on, and then like a curveball throws you, and like you get divorced. Did you have like first off, did you like have to like find like refine yourself or like kind of pick yourself up because it's like your whole plans got shifted, and maybe you wanted to be at a certain level, and then this held you back. Kind of like how did
Yeah. I didn't miss a beat. I I really didn't miss a beat. I was so upset, but I think weirdly being an athlete my whole life,
yeah
it's like
just
you
roll the
have that
punches?
you have that mentality of just like we have to keep going. Like you make a mistake, something happens, you have to move on, not necessarily move on, obviously deal with your issues and like work through those. But like you can't just wallow in self-pity or whatever that might look like for some people, and it's okay to have those feelings. I had days where I was like, I don't want to do anything and I'm not going to. And sometimes you need that, and that goes
Yeah.
back to our balance discussion. But being in this place of, okay, his income is completely gone. I'm starting a brand new business of real estate where I don't have any clients.
And you quit your job.
And I quit my job. I'm like, what in the world? Like this is a perfect storm. But I didn't miss a beat. I made sure that I was making money, and part of that was co-hosting, and property managing came in to where it's like, okay, well, at least I know that I'm getting this every month. As long as I keep tenants in these places, then I will have income coming in. Whereas real estate sales is a little bit scary, especially when you're starting out. It's like you don't know when you're going to sell another house.
Yeah.
You don't know when your next paycheck is going to come. So that provided a little bit of steadiness for me in that time, where I had no idea.
Because I feel like like especially I guess right now, like kind of becoming a real estate agent is kind of like a main thing everyone wants to do, and I feel like a lot of people like don't really know what to expect. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do real estate when I can or stuff like that. But it's like almost like I feel like the retail part of like the business is probably most time consuming thing there. I think there is definitely if you. And so let's say you just got your real estate license, you didn't have a job, had no income other than your properties. Like, what did you have to find to yourself to like, hey, I need to make this successful? Like, I know like there's so many real estate agents now. It's like, how did you have to like operate your business? How did you go about finding like leads? Like, it's kind of like because I feel like that's a very tough situation that you had to overcome in kind of like a weird time.
Yes, it was a very strange time. That, I think that everything was leading up to me potentially, getting my license. I knew that that was something that I wanted to do because I loved managing I actually did love managing and do love managing like my property now. But oh my gosh, totally lost my train of thought right there.
Talking about managing your properties and because the biggest issue about like getting the real estate.
Starting out. Yes, sorry. So starting out with your real estate license, how did I get business?
Because you like had your money from your rentals, but you're kind of like on your own and forced to, like you talked about, like thrown in the fire, forced to succeed.
I know.
So
I think it almost goes back to what you're talking about in the beginning, is surrounding yourself with people of, successful people or people who are doing what you want to be doing. So I made sure that I went, you join a brokerage, you join a team potentially when you become a realtor, real estate agent. And that's what I did. I attended the trainings. I did all of the, those things that I thought would get me to where I wanted to go, and putting all that positive energy out there, I think helped. And then, I haven't had a big network of people, only living here for 4 years, but um, I was able to maybe utilize my social media really helped.
Yeah.
I already had content from being
Like
a manager and having short-term and midterm rentals.
being a super host.
Being a super host.
Yeah.
Like such a high qualification that earning. So overall, I think just doing a really good job at listening to people, meeting people, and I think social media helps. I honestly, I have no answers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just worked.
Yeah, just head down and grinded.
Focused. Just grinded. And
So, I think Mark Cuban already said. I always ask this question all the time. He said
Mark.
business is the hardest sport in the world. It's like 24/7, nonstop. So, kind of, how do you keep or get your what's your competitive advantage? How about that? Is it midterm rental because that's like your specialty, or like what do you
I think in this
gives you the biggest
area,
advantage?
I think in this area that kind of has become an advantage because I'm knowledgeable on the short-term rentals and all of that. So I think investors want to work with me because I can help them.
Yeah. And honestly, like, so I've known you for a while, and every person I've met that knows you, like, oh, the midterm rental expert. That's what they call you. Midterm rental expert. I was like, yeah, that's her.
That's awesome. That's very nice of you, and nice of everyone to point out. Like I said, it's just, I find joy in it, and I want to help people. I don't want people to end up in a position to where I was.
Yeah.
And so if I can just advise or add value to them in any way while going through the process of figuring out what type of investment strategy they want to do, and I'm happy to keep them out of that where I was.
Because I kind of like I was never really big into sales or anything like that, but I feel like it kind of helped me because it's almost like you have to kind of like forget yourself and just focus on your client and how do you help this person. But has being like most people become a realtor, it's like, oh, I'm gonna use it to invest. I'm gonna use it to invest. I've actually had the opposite. I felt like it's hindered me way, way, way more being a realtor than if I wasn't.
I actually agree with you.
Because I send so many deals that I would have took down because I felt like I was obligated. Like, hey, my people want this deal. I send it to them.
Yeah.
So.
No, I feel that same
I've lost
way.
so much money. So much money, but it's good. I like seeing them succeed also. But
yeah, it's funny because I've helped people buy properties, and then I help them manage it, and I'm like, but I could have just bought this and done this on my own.
Also,
but but they have goals, and oftentimes you have to put them before yourself. But I think that just means that the perfect deal for you is coming. Those were for them. There's the better deal is, coming for you later.
Well, let's hope so. But so what are you doing right now? So it seems like you're realtor, property manager, and you said something about co-hosting, but I don't even know what that is.
Co-hosting is just separate. You can't call yourself a property manager unless you have your license, right? It's different in all states, but here in Virginia, you have to be a licensed real estate agent in order to manage other people's properties. But through Airbnb, you can be a co-host and not have your license. So you can still manage, on that platform at least. And I don't know what people do, how
so it's just like a workaround kind of thing.
It comes down to legalities. So
Airbnb says they don't care about your laws, but they'll do her thing.
Yeah, it's just another law. But so you basically partner with the owner and you share the platform and the profile of that property. So then the owner can see everything. You're like co-hosting.
I got you. So
alongside them.
So are you looking for deals yourself, or are you just right now really looking for just helping others? I know you have a lot on your plate, but
yeah, I'm always looking. always, always, always looking. And with everything that's gone on the past year, I just have to figure, like, I had to refinance. Like, I didn't have a choice. I had
Yeah.
to refinance the 4-unit, and during a time where interest rates were increasing. So I'm glad I did it when I did, and I didn't do a cash out because I
Only if you're like a year earlier, you've been really good for interest rate.
exactly. So I had a good interest rate on it, but I had to refinance because of the divorce. So luckily, I did it when I did, and I did not do a cash out refi. I thought about it, but I just didn't have anything in the works, and I didn't want that cash just sitting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna my next move would to have my HELOC set up. So that's what I'm working on now, is getting that in place so that when I do find something, I'll actually have
Yeah, because
that line.
I used Bayport for our
Mm-hmm.
HELOC, but honestly, I think their customer service is so bad. My first opinion is
Bayport, if you're listening.
Yeah, I know. I want them to listen, but like they're like their loan terms and all that was really good, but their customer service is bad.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is
Get
very
what
surprising.
you pay for, right?
I guess so. But I still go back to them because it's like I need that. So
because it's 100%, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's variable rate, so it changes.
Yeah.
But so I guess I know we're having a very shift in the real estate market right now. What are you seeing as like a realtor? Kind of like the market, like you seeing more time on the market. Like what are you seeing like for when you're putting in offers?
Yeah, definitely seeing a change. As an investor, I mean, it's always good to buy real estate.
Yeah,
I don't feel like, you hear about people really putting things on hold and waiting. And I feel like that mindset is so limiting. And I
yeah,
think that you can still do what you want to do in a shifting market or a changing market. So that's my take on that from an investor standpoint. As a realtor, definitely there's more days on market, price decreases, and the offers that I'm putting in for people are definitely like closing cost assistance and under list price. And there's definitely not as much competition where a year ago it was like you're up against 20 people.
yeah.
You know.
It seems like there's a lot of houses hitting the market. Also, I don't know the actual data, but
I was looking at it, and there's not as many as you'd think. There's more days on market, so it might seem like there's more inventory, but I think they're still going pretty quick.
yeah.
We're still behind with the inventory, but
So
yeah.
I always ask everyone this question. It's so much of a so talked about question. So do you think there's gonna be a real estate crash?
I don't think I call it a crash. I think that word is just so dramatic,
So thrown around.
thrown around and dramatic, and I am a pretty animated and dramatic person.
Yeah,
Sometimes that word is just like, we're crashing, we're
yeah.
burning, we're dying. It I think that we're going to continue to see changes. I don't think that there's going to necessarily be a crash, but like, mark my words, watch, I'm saying this and there's going to end up being one. Who knows?
I think it's very interesting. Definitely like the media. I feel like they like I like determine what's real for me. I see like hey what someone says, but also see like what are they doing. So if they're saying oh market crash, market crash, market crash, but they're buying like wildfire, well obviously they don't think it's going to be a market crash. You know what I'm saying? But that's just my personal opinion. I always
Yeah.
like yeah you listen to what they say, but see what they do because then you
Mhm.
really determine see what because I feel like a lot of like the media is just like a smoke screen like
Oh, yeah.
trying to
Oh,
scare you
yeah.
because they were saying market crash in 2020, but it didn't really
Yeah.
happen.
I say put your blinders on in some aspects, like obviously do your research and be knowledgeable, but almost like put your blinders on to all the naysayers, because there's always going to be naysayers, and there's always going to be the people that don't want you to succeed, or who are going to put those fears and worries and speak those to you if you tell them, hey, I want to go buy this 12-plex or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, why would you do that? And it's like, just ignore
Because
them.
I like real estate because of like the value aspect. I think value is based on two things: it's like scarcity and utility. Like scarcity is like hey, like the supply and demand. It's like for like starter homes, and for instance, like they can't build those. They can't like you mostly see new construction, new builds. It's always like 400,000 or 500,000 houses.
yeah.
And if you're buying in like the 200s, like you're buying below the household
It's
median.
probably built better too.
Yeah, probably.
Don't buy a house in 2019 or
Yeah.
that was built in 2019
Yeah.
or 2020.
And then like utility, like all this stuff, like all the plumbing, that's all gonna be worth something, regardless if it crashes or it doesn't crash. It's all still worth something. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just my perspective of it.
Yeah.
But so what is, like, I always ask everyone this question. Like, I feel like the best way to determine someone as a person is like, what is their why? So my biggest question is you. So what's your why? What do you think like your purpose is for like yourself and business?
Yeah.
I know it's a loaded question.
It totally is a great question, though. And I think it's very important for people to know their whys. And it's okay if your why changes because mine's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I think my why comes down to servicing and providing a need or filling a gap, whether that's housing for folks who need it or a service in helping people buy homes, right? So, like, my why is for others and like
Yeah.
how I can improve a neighborhood or how I can improve someone's life by helping them buy a home or providing shelter, right? Like our basic needs as humans, like one of those things is shelter. And if I could be a part of that, then I think that totally drives me. And then for personal reasons, I mean, freedom of time. I mean, we've talked
Yeah.
about that all day. Freedom of time and being able to disconnect or travel while working or, just having more freedom to enjoy this one life that we have.
Yeah.
And this one life that we have is very short and can end today.
Yeah. So where does your service mentality come from? Because I've noticed that even before you're a real estate agent, like you're very service oriented. Like, where do you think that comes from? Like, you just always been like that, always like people first, or
I don't know.
really trying to make you think?
Tyler's getting deep on
Yeah.
me over here. And I think there's a lot of people who have it innately in them. I think as humans, like we've lost touch on that aspect of our being. And I don't know
Yeah.
if this is like so philosophical, but I do think that that connection and human interaction is it is built into us. And I think a lot of people, we have so many distractions in life, and we kind of lose sight of like if we help each other or if we do something good or whatever it might be, we're actually, I mean, that ripple effect and
Yeah.
how that can truly impact somebody's just their day or their life. And I think I've met so many people over the years who have impacted me positively, and how wonderful to like encounter somebody like that. And so if I could just have like a teeny tiny like grain of sand or
Yeah.
like drop of that onto somebody else, then I feel like it's fulfilling.
Because I think I'm
So
no.
cheesy, right?
No, that's all good. I actually kind of like, it's very similar because I've noticed like even for myself being a real estate agent, like I've said it in the past, like me going buying a house or anything like that, like it's really never gonna do anything to me. My wife gets really excited when we buy it, but I don't necessarily care. It's all about
Mhm.
numbers, everything like that. But it's like, well, that's the one cool thing when I do like being a real estate agent because you actually see like them get excited, like them like helping someone. I feel like what life and joy, like I get more joy about helping others than receiving myself.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
even like I'm very religious, and I think like that's kind of like how God, when he came down to earth, his goal was to serve. So maybe that's what true happiness is just truly serving other people.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone always talks about wanting to change the world, but I think the how we change the world is just changing ourselves. And how do we help people? How do we make a difference? How do we help more people? And I feel like that mentality it's kind of lacked. And I feel like a lot of people get it like I feel like just some people you can tell like that are genuine and some people that are not. It's like if you truly do it for like just wanting to help others, I feel like there's so much joy out of that.
Yeah. And for the amount of podcasts that we've all listened to, right? I think that it's really easy to speak about money and success and all of these things and not enough people are really stepping back to ask the questions of why, or like
Yeah.
figure out their own why. And so I really appreciate that question, because it kind of pulls you away from the numbers
Mhm.
and the analysis and the rigidity
Yeah.
of life. And it really is like, oh my gosh, like I have a why, and I have feelings and emotions, and I have a purpose, and you create your own purpose, you know? And I think it's really cool if you can lean into something like that.
I think it's crazy because I've so maybe before I got into like business and everything, like there's always this misconception is like people that were successful, they like stabbed everyone in the back to get there. And
Mm.
I've talked to even people in this podcast, some really, really wealthy people,
Mm-hmm.
and their mentality is like that. They're like, their goal is to serve, 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 serve. And how
Mm.
do I, like, helping you achieve something or providing something has made me successful, but they're genuine about it. And I mean, maybe second generation, third generation, they kind of lose that. But most of the first generation, like wealthy people I know, have that mentality. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how do I help people? And the more people I help, the more it will be better for me.
Yeah,
So
I think we rise together. And going back to like, I feel like I want to have control of things. It's like, I'm not going to get anywhere with that type of a
yeah,
mentality. You have to, pull together as a team or groups of people, and like that's when you really see people shine, is
yeah.
when you go and grow together.
I
So,
think most people, like, I feel like there's big like as people, it's like they want to be like, if they're trying to be successful, I'm just gonna do it by myself. Like it's
mhm.
impossible to be successful by yourself. Even me talking to super wealthy people, and to say no, even Elon Musk didn't do it by himself getting
Right.
there. So, but is like finding people that have the same motivation to you, and you all growing together. And I think I can't remember who said it. It was like success is a team sport.
Mhm.
If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go really far, go as a team.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what
Hit
I
me
try to
right
live by.
here.
Yeah.
Hit me right here in the chest.
So just kind of like bring everything together. Like, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners, or that you can think of?
Mm. You got to crush that self-doubt. That would be something that would have really helped me along the way, is to crush that self-doubt and get rid of that fear, we
Yeah,
talked about earlier, and make it happen and keep moving forward. And you're going to get, knocked down by several things or people, um, and you just have to allow for those no's, or allow for those things to knock you down, because it's just going to propel you and help you get to where you want to be.
I know. My wife Emma used to be on the show. Now, like, she handles a lot of our stuff. She can't come on there. But I know, for like, I talked to Eric. He mentioned like his wife is like his ultimate teammate.
Mm.
He don't even think he would be where he was if it wasn't for her. And I know, for me, it's definitely. But so I know you went through like a rocky divorce. Like, do you have any piece of advice, like, to kind of like, for like almost a relationship, try to make sure like you like choose a spouse that shares your vision, or anything like that?
I mean, definitely partnership is
Because
huge.
that's like your business partner in life. Like, everything's involved, so you want to make sure you have the same track mind. Like, that's your teammate.
Totally. But I say also, don't be afraid to go alone. Even though, we're talking about finding partnership and grow together. I think that's huge. But I think also, if you have an idea or you want to do something and you're in a partnership, like, try to do it
Yeah,
and talk about it. I think, there's a lot of couples who don't agree on a lot, and but if you're able to listen and hear each other out and understand where they're coming from
yeah.
and want to support them, because you
Hmm.
ultimately love them, right? Then I think you figure out your different strengths in it. And I know plenty of people who, one person in the couple is like Eric. He's like, go, go, go.
A
Sorry,
machine.
Eric. I know who you are, Eric, so it's okay. We know each other. But like he was saying, like he's the brains of like not the brains, but he's the one
He's
who's always
he's the
going,
machine, and his wife reels him in. It's like,
yes.
no, Eric, don't do that.
Yes. So I think that you can have a balance in that. And I think it's okay if one person, you know, has a different passion than another. It's just all about that love and that support and being okay in those positions and not being intimidated. Like
Yeah.
as a female, it's like if like your man should or your partner, whoever, like shouldn't be intimidated and try to hold you back. Like they
Yeah.
should really help propel you. And I think that
So was it really hard to like almost nerve wracking to like, hey, I gotta do this by myself now?
it was kind of freeing.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit freeing for me personally, but
Mhm.
everyone's situation is different. But I definitely, it's intimidating. It was intimidating, but I think it was also like I'm free.
Yeah. And do you think like it definitely helped propel you forward because you were on your own and you just had to find to make it work?
Yeah, I think I lived a lot of my marriage and my life for that other person, and I
Hmm.
lost myself in it, and I tried to find myself. But I think I really, you know, my greatest asset is also my greatest downfall. And you're like, you value have a service mindset. Well, I
Yeah.
had a service mindset in my marriage too, and it really hindered what I was able to do because I didn't put myself first, and I wanted to do everything so that he could succeed in what he
Yeah.
was doing. And so I think for me personally, it was freeing. Other people might not feel that way, depending on your situation, but definitely feel like I'm in
Because
a better space
I
now.
think like especially with me and Emily, it's like, hey, she grows individually, I grow individually. I'm not trying to change her because I can't change, and I'm not going to get mad because she's an imperfect person, just like, and I'm more so. So, and it's like, hey, I just focus on being the best version of me. She focuses on the best version of her, and we just all grow together.
Yeah,
So, and it
I think it's
works
huge.
for us. So,
Yeah.
so I know you're all over social media. Can you let our listeners know like where's exactly they can find more about you?
Sure. If you want to creep on me, you can go to Instagram at Moves by Mel. um, and that would probably be the best. You can find me on Facebook as well. I also have a Facebook group called Midterm Rental Investors. If you want to join us on there, I'd love to hear some feedback and what you guys want to learn more about on there.
You're very active on there. So that's got to be time consuming because I see like almost like anyone comment or anyone says something, you're immediately
Oh, I have
responding.
to, right? Like until more people join,
Yeah.
because it's a very small group. So if you want to get in on the ground up, please.
Yeah, I got you. I seem like it's grown pretty fast though. Like
Yeah.
it's been a couple days. I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
it's doing pretty good.
Yeah. So that's actually a good example of analysis paralysis. I started that group a year ago and it sat dormant. And I recently was like, F it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going for it, going live and all this stuff. So,
And there's like a Facebook group for everything, but I actually haven't seen one for midterm rentals. So
no, so many short term rental groups.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, join me.
But,
Come say hi.
and if you have issues with regulations for your short-term rental or midterm rental, make sure you reach out. But I've had a blast, and I'm really glad I was able to. We're able to finally do this. So, and we'll definitely have to get you on again sometime. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing all your knowledge and really your life story also. So I appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I have loved being on here as well.
Okay.